Welcome to Conscia's webinar on SASE and SSE and security, unlocking security. We are super excited because we hope you will find that we have made a very interesting agenda regarding SSE, which is one of the most hyped technologies at the moment. The agenda goes like this. I will start with a soft start and take us through the evolution of SASE and SSE. I will also touch a little bit on SD-WAN. After me, we will have Cisco, Peter Paul from Cisco. He will take us through Zero Trust, which also is a very hyped thing at the moment. And after Peter Paul, we will have Cherry, who will take us through the new offering from Cisco, the SSE offering that they launched last year. And we will wrap up with a demo. We have been praying to the demo gods all morning, so hopefully they will be merciful on us, and it will be a great demo that we will do. And then we will finalize the presentation with some Q&A if there are any Q&As. So it will be a soft start, and then we will go deeper and deeper into the technology. So hopefully there's something for everyone here. We hope that this is a fact, and we look forward to see the presentations from all of us. Right. So I have the honor to kick it off, and I will start with some of the security trends that we see at the moment regarding SASE and SSE, and I'll also touch a little bit on the evolution. And the people who know me, I will definitely also have some Gartner stuff in my presentation, because I think a lot of customers are at least listening a little bit to Gartner, or are using it as a entry point to decide which way to go, which technology to look into. So my first point is here that is it a hype or is it a trend? I think that we will find out that by the end of the day, it's not just a hype and a trend at the moment. We will see it's actually turning into some mature technology, at least going forward from 2024 or 2025. So I hope that will be the end goal for today. That is not only a trend and a hype, but also actually it is a mature technology, right? So why the hype? For it has been a hype. It is still a hype regarding SASE and SSE. Everybody knows who is working in IT that we have much more remote workers. I think that 2 out of 5 work remote once a week. So that's one point. Of course, we have much more SaaS apps, so apps living in the cloud. I think that 70% of all companies has a 5 and more SaaS apps going on. And then definitely we need to do more decentralized IT security, because our users are scattered around basically around they work from everywhere, and a centralized parameter will not fit well in this new hybrid world, because it doesn't make sense to divert traffic into a central firewall. So we'll need to have there's decentralized IT security. And then on the infrastructure side, direct internet access is a new normal, because, as I mentioned, users want to have direct access to their applications and direct access to whether their application is in the cloud or on-prem. So that's also a trend that is making this hype. And then, of course, the last point I've taken into the equation here is that global MPLS circuits are under pressure with cheaper internet circuits with SD-WAN on top. So that's why the SASE has been quite hyped. And everybody knows that we have looking into a severe amount of cyber threats. So that's the next point why it's so hyped with the SSE and the SASE. We have we have big threats out there, and it has just been more going on after the war in Ukraine and stuff like that. So we are looking into a severe cyber threats out there. So that's also why we will have to do something with the remote users and help them to stay on the secure side. Talking about hypes. As I mentioned, Gartner is always a part of my slides, and this is the hype cycle, right? And I have just put the technology that we are going to touch upon today. The SSE is definitely hyped. It's peaked right at the moment on the hype cycle. SASE is a little bit more down the road, and Zero Trust is getting momentum into the maturity plateau where SD-WAN has been for quite some time. I think it's fair to say that Gartner released a new version of, or defined a new version of ZTNA, Universal ZTNA, which combines network and cloud security as such. So that is going to be the new version of ZTNA. So I will touch on that later. But as you see, SD-WAN has been here for some time. It was I think it was in 2014 or something like that. It was first defined in MEF, and Gartner after that took up the solution and did their own way of getting things a little bit confused, to be honest. So let's look a little bit into SD-WAN. As you can see in the Magic Quadrant, almost all vendors are up in the Magic Quadrant, so in the leader quadrant, right? And that tells me that that it is actually SD-WAN is getting more mature, because when we find all the vendors up there, it's a good sign of that the technology is mature, that everybody has to some extent adapted the capabilities that is defined within SD-WAN. So that's a good indication that it's actually a mature technology. However, you will need to understand that SD-WAN is made of acquisitions, right? As you see the picture here, Meraki, Viptela has been acquired by Cisco, Silver Peak by HP, VeloCloud by VMware, CloudGenix by Palo Alto, 128 Technology by Juniper, and so on and so forth. So this is even the picture is going to get even more motley, I would say, because we have seen some consolidation that HP acquired Juniper, and I think that VMware is at least has a lesser play in terms of the SD-WAN part. So we will see some kind of consolidation within those acquisitions. And why is this important? I think this is important when you look into SASE, which I will touch upon next time on the next section of my slides, is that because it's important that the vendors you look into as a customer has a great integration, and this is just my point of saying the acquisition needs to be great integrated with the rest of the portfolio, right? Just for reference, I've added the capability slides in detail, so I'm not going to dive into those individually, but basically they are divided in core, standard, and recommended capabilities. And I think it's also fair to mention that Gartner actually did more confusion, at least in the beginning, than they did clearance, because they actually, I would say, added a lot of confusion into the market. But for the last, say, 2 to 3 years, they have been really consistent regarding the capabilities that you need to support, in order to have a good SD-WAN solution. So that's just this is a reference slide. If you guys are looking into some kind of POC or anything like that, it's a good reference to look into these capabilities if they fit your needs, and so on and so forth. So the next part in the evolution is SASE, and as mentioned, there's 2 flavors of SASE. There's multi-vendor SASE and single-vendor SASE. Single-vendor SASE was defined, I think it was last year, by Gartner. But basically, it says that a multi-vendor SASE is that you have, for example, SD-WAN from one provider and the security part from another provider, and where single-vendor SASE has you have the entire package from a single vendor. So this is fairly new. The Magic Quadrant is from last year, and our friends from Cisco is still visionaries. But I think it's fair to say that the product that Gartner has evaluated here is not the product that we are going to talk about today, because it's a brand new product from Cisco. So this is fair to say that they are in the visionary quadrant. But as you see, there's some well-known logos up there. and some of them I think will be under pressure going forward because of the acquisitions that I mentioned before. Basically, SASE consists of a networking part, a security part, and an identity part, combined with visibility, APIs, and integration. And the SD-WAN can be as SD-WAN or SD-WAN Lite, as sometimes tend to call it. And the security is SWIGs, firewalls, CASB capabilities, and of course the identity part is multi-factor, zero trust, and all that kind of stuff. And if you are a single vendor, then you have all that combined in one package, and hopefully, as a single vendor, you have one UI supporting all those capabilities. Right. So just an overview of a SASE solution is that in the bottom you have the remote offices, you have the remote workers, you have mobile users. They access the network, which preferably is as network as a service, as SD-WAN or VPN or SD-WAN Lite, depending on how you see it. I tend to call some of the solutions out there SD-WAN Lite. It depends on the capabilities, of course. And then on top of that, you have the security part, and then finally you can access your internet, your infrastructure as a service, or your software as a service, or even your headquarters. So that's basically the main overview of a SASE solution. I've added some capabilities as well. I'm not going to dwell on that, as it's just for reference. So please look into that if you feel free to look into that. It's fair to say that there's been an immense amount of marketing hype regarding SASE, and also where vendors that doesn't meet the SASE requirements have been saying that they have a solution that is a SASE solution, but at least we have now some capabilities that is core and some that is recommended for you as a customer to evaluate a given vendor. Right. Final part of my evolution scheme is the SSE, and as you remember, the hype cycle, the SSE is the new part of this security slash basically this security or part of the SASE solution. So Gartner has revealed a Magic Quadrant for SSE last year, and as you see on the slide, it's completely different vendors, or at least some of different vendors that has been here. And this is my own personal interpretation. I think that the reason why Gartner came up with an SSE was basically because Zscaler and Netscope didn't have their own SD-WAN solution, so they have to do something for those vendors. But that's my own interpretation. I think perhaps it's not completely fair, but at least we must remember that Gartner is not only an analyst company; it's also an influencer company. So they tend to have at least some kind of interest in doing various analysts or various to do various quadrants of different products, right? And again, it's fair to say that Cisco is in the challenger quadrant, and that's because of was evaluated based upon the old technology. So today they have the brand new technologies we're going to hear about today. So let's see what the future is going to bring on Cisco. I think that they will be in the leader quadrant going forward. Right, the SSE technology, basically it's SASE without the SD-WAN. So it's again security in the cloud. It's identity, zero trust is now the new thing, and then again visibility, APIs, and integration. An overview of the SSE is that you have the zero trust access, which is identity-based access. So you only get access to the resources that you have privilege to visit, and then you will afterwards you will have to go through a firewall, a CASB, or a security web gateway, etc. I think that this is not a technical slide; it's an overview slide. But I think it's important to mention that that zero trust has also been interpreted in various ways. Zero trust is not protected. So as I mentioned in one of the first slides, Gartner has swapped from zero trust to universal zero trust, where universal zero trust is going to be a networking part and a cloud part in terms of security. So I think that's at least a good thing to look into, that so you can get a completely end-to-end security package, and some vendors are already supporting that. But just bear in mind that the zero trust has been misused many times, and I'm sure it will be going forward, even though Gartner is trying to define a much stricter version of zero trust, right? Okay. Then the final part of my presentation, I'm going to talk about the journey. And I know you guys have been probably heard it's a journey 1,000 times in the past, because most vendors are using that term. But actually, what I see and what many vendors see is that a SASE/SSE project is actually a journey. We don't think that many companies will actually go in a straight direct line from start to goal in a SSE/SASE project. There will be obstacles. That might be technical debt, or that might be that if you're going, for example, going for a cloud-based firewall and you have an on-prem firewall that still has 2 years before it's written off, then perhaps you will have to wait for that from a financial point of view. You might have to upskill, or you might have competence gaps that give you at least delay your products to some extent, even though we don't talk much about it. But still, silos might also be an obstacle in terms of prolonging a SSE project or a SASE project. We have seen that for some customers. And of course, legacy apps, if you have a lot of legacy apps, it's not easy just to move them to a cloud solution. So you will have to have a solution where you combine hybrid and cloud, where some of the legacy applications that's not easily to be refactored, they'll have to stay at the on-prem data center, and then you will have to decide which application you can move into the cloud as well. So that might also be prolonging the project phase, so to speak. And finally, we see in many of our products that processes needs to be defined and is not in place from the beginning, and that's pretty important if you want to think automation within the project phase, so to speak. So I assume no customers will have a direct line. As I mentioned, there will be some obstacles going forward, but that should not at least stop you from looking into a SASE SSE project, because it actually makes sense because of the way we work today. So my last slide is actually some key takeaways, right? We have talked about SD-WAN, SASE, SSE, whether or not it's one of the other or a combination. I think that it's good to at least to make an assessment on what do you have, or what is your current install base. Do you want to do it yourself, or do you want to buy it as a service? That's also a possibility. Do you have security infrastructure that needs to be written off and before you can start, or do you have any economic obstacles that you might have to consider? So the whole assessment part might be quite important before you start. And then when you have assessed your infrastructure and the whole ecosystem around it, then make a plan where to start and where to end. Some customers might even not necessarily go for the entire organization for a SSE or a SASE solution. They might take part of it. But make a plan that will help you to execute on the project and to be successful. And then, of course, I only emphasize customers to do a vendor POC or POV. Might it be single vendor SASE? Might it be multi-vendor SASE? Whatever fits you best. Also, is being part of the assessments, right? And also, if you're doing a managed service, we will buy a SSE or a SASE as a service, then of course also you have to at least do a FQ or a POC on those managed service partners. That I think is a good idea. And finally, upskill. Well, of course, it depends on whether or not you buy things as a service or not. But you'll have to upskill your people, because this is fairly new technology. And from beginning, think in the two operations and automation. And again, the two operations might be different depending on whether you want to do it yourself or you want to buy it as a service. But if you want to do it yourself, I think automation is key here to make a successful day 2 operation. So that was basically my slide, and I'm just 4 minutes ahead of time, so that's actually perfect at the moment. And that allows me to welcome our next speaker, Peter Paul from Cisco. He's going to talk about ZTNA. Welcome, Paul.
Hey, thank you, Henrik. Great to be here. Thank you so much for having us. Peter Paul. I'm a SSE solution specialist at Cisco, and I will want to introduce the topic, the meat of today's session. But before I do so, I want to make sure that I highlight some of the housekeeping. So if you have questions or thoughts that you want to share, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. We have our panel in the back end to respond to them. So don't hesitate to raise any questions. Now, introducing the topic and Cisco Secure Access, I'd like to take one step back. As Henrik mentioned, SSE is a journey. It's an elephant eat. Just like Zero Trust is a very tightly coupled topic that a lot of customers see as a big elephant. How do you eat a big elephant? By being pragmatic, by slicing the elephant in a lot of small pieces and eating it one bit at a time. And that is where we want to take our customers on from a Cisco perspective. We envision a Zero Trust access journey. And looking at the journey, we want to start with the biggest obstacle or the biggest threat and risk that CISOs today see. And still today, that is users. Users are the ones that are driving most of the incidents, are creating, or the weakest link oftentimes in our environment. So looking at users and how they connect to our enterprise is a really great start to onboard on that Zero Trust journey. Looking then at the technologies that we used to have to connect users. Whenever users are working from home, VPN is the traditional way of connecting users to applications. And we want to migrate that to a Zero Trust network access or a Zero Trust access type of connectivity model. And let's talk about the difference between the two. Because as Henrik mentioned, in the hype cycle, Zero Trust network access is already 2 years ahead. So what is the difference now with Zero Trust access per se? Cisco believes that unified Zero Trust access is using the same technologies and concepts as ZTNA, but integrating them in the already existing network infrastructure so that we can actually have a pragmatic way of onboarding on that journey so that we don't have to add a separate standalone tower or new technology that ZTNA used to be. Unified Zero Trust builds on existing technology that you already have in your environment. So that is the why of Zero Trust. Like, what is the difference now with ZTNA? Now, if we look at the what and what our customers are actually looking for whenever they finalize that Zero Trust journey, it is really about connecting that user using those Zero Trust principles. Least privilege access, only connecting those users to those applications that they are allowed to. Having micro-segmentation, regardless of the underlying network. reducing therefore the threat surface, because when a user can only connect to that specific application and he cannot see any other resource on the network, that means that there is very limited possibility for lateral movement for that user. So once that user gets infected, he will only expose the surface that he or she is allowed to. So we see that unified zero trust access definitely delivers a whole lot of benefits. Now, moving towards unified zero trust is where we see, based on our interviews with customers and developing secure access, we needed to change something. Because a lot of the customers that were on the first hype cycle with ZTNA, we see that still a lot of them were not fully delivering on the promise that they were set forward. Because 80% of the applications that a lot of users or customers are making available through a ZTNA proxy still would require 20% of VPN services in order to make all applications available. So when we developed our SSE solution, we envisioned a way that we are not going to do a big bang. We're not going to eat the elephant in one go and go straight to ZTNA, but we rather have a pragmatic approach whereby we're actually upscaling your VPN to a cloud-based VPN and introducing zero trust concepts like least privileged access, like that cloud layer for easier management, that global availability. And once we have established a VPN as a service or a cloud-based VPN, then we can lift and shift per application towards a zero trust access type of architecture, so that we eat the elephant in bite for bite. I also want to make a mention of what Henrik mentioned in the beginning about Gartner and the Magic Quadrant. Just like the quadrant is a look back to technology, how it used to be in the past, so is the current quadrant actually a reflection of how our portfolio used to be about 1.5 to 2 years ago. So the technology and the benefits that you will see here in Secure Access are actually not part of the quadrant that you will very soon see coming out. So just like I would like to urge you maybe to look into and understand our solution, be mindful that Gartner does not always have all of the, or is not reporting based on all of the capabilities that you will see today. Just like, and that's a final thought, finishing with what Henrik said, as it is a journey to move through the pragmatic approach, we want to be a cloud transformation partner for you. We don't want to be a standalone, unique vendor that is maybe there for the next 5 years. We see that this is a journey for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And Cisco has proven to be a transformation partner and will prove in the future with SSE to be that same transformation partner for ZTA. So with that, I think I'll hand it back to Henrik for really the meat of the session today.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the insight, and I completely agree that the Gartner is a look back and not a outlook at the current or at the new technology. Which allows me to introduce our next speaker, Terry, who's going to dig a little bit deeper in the technology, right, and give us a presentation about Cisco Secure Access. Thank you. Welcome, Peter. Terry, sorry, welcome, Terry. Take it away.
Okay. Good morning, all. My name is Thierry van Stertegem. I'm working at Cisco for the EMEA incubation team as a solution engineer for SSE and for Zero Trust. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what is Cisco Secure Access by itself. So first definition that we have already, that we see already over here with Cisco Secure Access is that we will give the users an easy way in, an easy access from anywhere in the world. And that's something that we have to remember all the time. So why do we need it? That's the first question. Because everyone is used to have different components on their machines. Everyone is used to manage them. Maybe some people do remind them, but like for an admin, nowadays it's tough. An admin sometimes have more than 40 consoles to manage the different components in their networks, like the proxy, like the different components on the clients, like the VPN configurations, and so on. So it becomes a different thing and a difficult environment for an admin and also for a user itself. What do I need to use, or how do I have to connect to a specific application in the backend? So streamlining a user, streamlining the way how an admin is working nowadays, that's the way forward. So we want to simplify the user, and we want also to simplify the work for an admin itself. So we want to give the user itself access to the internet and to the private applications by using ZTNA and also using the same environment to connect that same user over the internet. So simplify the work for an user, but we're also going to simplify the work for an admin itself. So we are going to specify this presentation over 3 different use cases. And the first use case that we see nowadays popping up more and more is how we are going to migrate our VPN environment from a local VPN concentrator towards our Cisco Secure Access environment. So we are going to simplify the way on how a user is connecting towards the internet or using his VPN itself. A second thought is, like we discussed in the past already several times, is how we are going to avoid using a VPN connecting to a private application. So with the private application access, we are going to give you some means on how you can connect to these private applications without using any VPN. And last but not least is secure internet access itself. So how we are going to secure the internet access by protecting HTTP and DNS for the user. So first of all, we need to identify the user. It's always the most important step. And then we have identified this user. We have a system on the workstation where we are going to handle the connectivity. So our system that's included on the workstation is going to decide which direction the packet has to go towards the private applications, traditional apps, SaaS applications, and internet. So for the user itself at that moment, he doesn't have to decide anymore what he's going to open. If he needs to open his VPN, if he needs to open another component which is running on his machine. So everything is handled from Cisco Secure Access, from the cloud, and all configurations are sent over to the client workstation itself. So for the user, it just works. No fuss, nothing to change. The only thing that he needs to know is, do I have to open my VPN, yes or no? And for all the rest, all the other components that are running on the client workstation, at that moment they are just doing their tasks. So what are the different benefits? It's easier, it's frictionless. So we have less time, we need less time to connect to different applications. And at the end, it's all into one solution. So that's the biggest advantage at today, is when we see the architecture of Cisco Secure Access itself, at that moment we see we have one cloud component where the different users are connecting to, or where the different branches are connecting to. And at the egress part, we are going to connect to the internet or to the public or private applications into your data center or into your private cloud. Some keywords on this slide are the unified dashboard, unified policy, single SLA, and which is very easy to manage for the admin itself. So like I said already in the beginning, it's not only for the user itself that we are going to simplify the work, but it's also for the admin. And today, the dashboard is mainly web-based. But towards the future, we are going to introduce more API talks so that everything will be managed through APIs itself. So for the admin, he can automate the different tasks, for example, on how to authenticate the user, on how to include MFA, what kind of posture checks do I need to configure, and what kind of egress configurations do I need to add into my network itself. As a next step, you're going to see that the users are connecting to different apps which are residing everywhere, and within Cisco Secure Access, we are going to define the how on the policies that we are going to define on connecting to Cisco Secure Access over Cisco Secure Access towards the internet or private applications itself. That's the basics. Let's go a little bit deeper into Secure Internet Access itself. So first of all, it's our branch office. How we are going to connect our branch to the internet. So here in this slide, I was showing that in the left corner, we have our branch connecting over an IPsec to Cisco Secure Access. So first of all, when you have Umbrella or when you have Umbrella SIG, you know that you can register your network or you can register your public IP also. This remains the same. So that's something that you can use also within Cisco Secure Access. All the different aspects that you can have from the configuration point of view are here on the slide. But as you can see, when you know Umbrella or when you know the Anycast resolvers on Umbrella, then you will see that the IPv4 and IPv6 addresses are remaining the same. A second topic is, of course, is how we are going to connect our branch office just by using IPsec. And then you have two different ways. Or we are going to use SD-WAN, which is described over here. We are going to use the different components within SD-WAN. Or we can also use, and let's go back to this slide here, or we can also use our firewall, which resides on your premise, which is using at that moment a VPN connection towards Cisco Secure Access. So when you go deep dive a little bit down into Cisco Secure Access itself, at that moment you're going to see that you're going to build up two different tunnels, two different data centers into our cloud environment. When those two tunnels are built, we can configure these tunnels as active-active or as active-passive. But if you are not happy with the bandwidth that we are using, at that moment we can start using ECMP. So we can multiply the bandwidth over different tunnels. So we are going to combine the bandwidth from 1 gig starting over to 4 gig, and which we are going to higher up into the future itself. Later on, today, everything has to be done manually, but as you can see on the slide, with SD-WAN, we now have betas available where we are going to automate these tunnel configurations from your SD-WAN device towards Cisco Secure Access. And when Cisco Secure Access is connected, at that moment you can start configuring your different policies. And these policies are going to tell you how traffic is controlled in your firewall as a service environment, including IPS, different IPS rules. Or when the firewall sees web traffic over port 80 and 443, we are going to send this traffic towards our proxy environment. And within this proxy environment, we can test the traffic if the traffic is safe, or we can include also DLP and CASB configurations. When all the traffic has been controlled, has been sent through the different systems within Cisco Secure Access, we are going to forward the traffic towards the internet itself. So here in this use case in Secure Internet Access, the client who is living on premise is connected through an SD-WAN device towards Cisco Secure Access, and the traffic is forwarded automatically to the internet environment. Another example is Office 365. We all know that Office 365 can become difficult when we are intercepting the traffic. in Cisco Secure Access, we have some exemptions where we are going to see when Office 365 is seen, we are just going to forward the traffic to the internet without any interruption. So, redundancy itself, like I said already inside the network tunnel group, we are building 2 different tunnels. So redundancy inside these tunnels are run based on BGP or APIs. And we have 2 types of redundancy, like I said already. We have one primary DC, one secondary DC, which can be configured as active-active or active standby. Most use cases that we see nowadays is when we are going over to connect our branch office towards Cisco Secure Access, is that we are going to use BGP inside the tunnels. One biggest advantage of that one is that when we are using BGP, we do not have to take care of anything of the routing inside your branch office itself. All routing at that moment is handled within BGP, within the tunnels. One question is that we always get when we are using BGP, is the BGP then forwarded to your internal traffic? No, routing in your internal branch remains the same. You do not have to change anything on the routing side on your branch itself. All routing is handled within the network tunnel group and within Cisco Secure Access. Another topic which becomes important is secure private access, on how we are going to handle connectivity for our clients connecting to Cisco Secure Access. And within Cisco, we have a term managed endpoint and unmanaged endpoint. And when we discuss about managed endpoint, we tell them, okay, we have a secure client installation running on the endpoint itself. When we are talking about an unmanaged endpoint, then we are talking about a contractor or about an external user that wants to use our private applications within our data center. So at that moment, there is no need anymore that the user who wants to use, or our external user or our contractor wants to use our applications without the need of an application running on his device itself. So for that one, it becomes very simple. It's a user who is connecting to Cisco Secure Access with or without an application, and he can start doing his job. For this user, we are going to have clientless or client-based connectivity. So for the ZNA part, so when the user is going to use private applications, so the core private applications, or an external user, or a contractor is trying to connect to one application inside your data center itself, that's something that we can control from Cisco Secure Access itself. So within the policies that we are running onto our firewall, controlling the traffic from the user towards the applications, these controls are identity-based or are user-based. Why? Because we have a very important component running also in Cisco Secure Access, which is the authentication part. We know who the user is because we have to authenticate before we can connect. And when the user is authenticated, at that moment we can start using the identity-based controls within Cisco Secure Access itself. On the user side, we have over here an example, which will be shown also during the demo, is that within Cisco Secure Access, Secure Client, we have 2 components running in this example. We have our AnyConnect VPN, something that we know, and we have a new client, which is called a Zero Trust Access client. That's an integrated module inside the secure client environment. So for the user itself and for the admin, we don't have to manage different agents on the client itself. So for the user, the moment he clicks on enroll and he's going to authenticate himself, for the user itself, he gets his configuration from the cloud, and when the configuration is received, at that moment, the user doesn't know if his traffic is passed through Cisco the Zero Trust Access module, or if the traffic is forwarded over the VPN or just over the normal Ethernet connection. One important remark: for the zero trust access, we do require a TPM module or a secure enclave on the system itself. Why do we need that? Is because we have to store the different keys. So the keys that we are using inside a zero trust access module, the keys are stored into our hardware TPM module onto the system itself. Another big thing on the zero trust access module is that we do support TCP and UDP based applications. At the moment, we do not have a real limit on what kind of TCP ports or UDP ports we are configuring, what kind of applications we are configuring. But do remember one thing for the zero trust access client: it's always client-server applications. So the zero trust access module doesn't support any server-initiated traffic. When you have server-initiated traffic, you need to start using your VPN. Otherwise, and then your client becomes part of the normal network, and it's all layer 3. The zero trust access module, when you install it, it is not required that you are running your AnyConnect VPN module. We have integrations, we can have integrations with OpenVPN and with other third-party VPN clients. But remember, it's interop, so that can create some extra difficulties. And last but not least, something what we are also including is Musky and Quick. Why we are going over to Quick? Quick is UDP based, so it means it's faster than TCP. It provides security within the protocol itself. And by default, Quick is HTTP 3, is the basis for the new RFC for HTTP 3. So we know that it's fast. Within this Quick protocol, we are using Musky. And what does Musky do? Instead of choosing one single connection for an application, we are going to multiplex these application requests from the clients towards a proxy sitting in Cisco Secure Access. But what's now the advantage of using Quick? And that's something that you see in the schema over here. When you have standard TCP, we also have your connection setup. When you include TLS, you have your connection setup for TLS. So you see that your connection time is growing from 100 milliseconds to more than 200, sometimes 300 milliseconds. That depends on the TLS network that you are using. Within Quick, at that moment, we are moving from TCP to UDP. We are integrating security at that point. And then you see that we have, with one connection, we already have done our connection setup, and we are moving over from 100 or more to less. So the connection and data communication is going into one way. One remark on the ZTNA proxy, which is running into the Cisco Secure Access, and that's going to something that I'm going to focus later on also, is that by default, we are using Quick into our ZTNA module. But if you have a firewall that tells, I do not like Quick, because my admin, we know that Quick in the past was also misused, and my admin decides to block the Quick protocol on the firewall itself, by default, we are going to change the protocol from Quick towards HTTP2, including TLS. But remember then this slide also. So Quick, just on the wrong button, sorry. Quick by itself is going much faster than using TCP plus TLS. Another module which is integrated into the secure client environment is the roaming security module. The roaming security module is in fact a module that's running on your client, forwarding all configured DNS and HTTP traffic. So by default, it's forwarding all the traffic to Cisco Secure Access, and then that traffic is then forwarded to the internet itself. A lot of people, when they know Umbrella or they know Umbrella SIG, they know the Umbrella roaming client. In fact, roaming security module, what you see over here, is something similar what we have in Umbrella. The only difference is instead of sending it to Umbrella data centers, we are going to forward the traffic to Cisco Secure Access. And all traffic at that moment is controlled within Cisco Secure Access. And then last but not least, it's the VPN. We have seen in the beginning with Secure Private Access that we can use our VPN to connect towards our private applications. For the internet part, we can use the same VPN, but then also connecting to the internet. So all traffic at that moment will be forwarded to our firewall, and it's then the firewall that's going to decide if the traffic will be forwarded to our proxy, where we are going to manage the different, where we have the different controls. Traffic at that moment is forwarded to the net, towards our internet. So in this case, all traffic is always netted locally into our data centers itself, into our AWS cloud environment itself. What's also a big advantage of using the firewall over here is that we can include IPS-based rules. So all these IPS-based rules, which are snort rules, at that moment we can control all the traffic which is going through our environment itself. With the private access part, when we're moving over to private access again, at that moment we were talking about about HTTP 2, which I was discussing just before the previous slides. We are going to forward the traffic from the ZTNA component in Cisco Secure Access, forwarding the traffic to our environment, to our cloud environment, and then the cloud environment is going to decide where to send the traffic to. Traffic steering is automatically added, and one important thing is, before traffic steering is introduced on client level, the user has to enroll himself inside the Zero Trust Access module. Enrolling means authentication. Another part which is important is the authorization part. And how we are going to authorize this user is by controlling the username if Cisco Secure Access knows this user inside Cisco Secure Access. So we are going to synchronize this user by using SCIM or by using other mechanisms to control this user, to synchronize the user towards Cisco Secure Access, and then we are going to authorize this user to have access. Another important component inside the ZTNA part is the posturing. As you can see over here within the posturing client, which is using the Duo desktop agent, at that moment, we are going to control the client for different attributes. For example, if Windows is up to date, and inside Cisco Secure Access, you can configure the posturing saying, I just want that my application is connected over Firefox running on Windows 11. If I'm using Windows Edge at that moment, I'm not able to use that specific application. That are the different components that I can use within my policy. Our Duo desktop agent itself is going to control also the different components like BitLocker and if the disk is encrypted, yes or no. That's something that we can control. Like I said before, the VPN module can be used for secure internet access, but also can be used for secure private access. So our component, our client station at that moment, becomes a member of the network. And all traffic is routed over Cisco Secure Access over an L3 network. So our client at that moment is connecting towards the network tunnel group, towards the private applications itself. So one remark for remote access VPN. Like I said already, authentication is key for remote access VPN. At the moment, we do support Active Directory authentication, we do support SAML authentication, and we do support also certificate-based authentication. In remote VPN, we can combine SAML and certificate-based authentication also. So that's something that we can combine. Within this VPN, we also have posturing. And this posturing at that moment is going to be the basis for the control on if you are able to connect for a VPN running from a specific client, running from a specific agent. Like I said, when a user is trying to connect to a private application without the need of any agent running on the machine, like secure client, at that moment we have the clientless or browser-based access. So today we can only connect towards private applications based on private web-based applications. In the future, we are going to include also SSH and RDP access. With this type of connectivity, we can also include posturing. But posturing in this case is based on the information that we can retrieve from the client browser. So what the client browser can tell us is what you can see here is ZNA browser based, is what the browser can tell us is what kind of operating system and what kind of browser we are using. We also have an IP address that we receive from the client based on the connectivity part, if the client is coming from a region that we allow to connect into our Cisco Secure Access environment. Today, geolocation check is based on posturing, but that's something that we are going to move over also later on into our policies itself, so that we can have a geolocation check inside our policies. We now discussed the ingress part. But the most important part is also on how we are going to connect these applications, private applications, onto Cisco Secure Access itself. How we are going to tell Cisco Secure Access that my private applications are living in my private cloud-based data center or in my data center itself, in my private data center. A first connectivity point is the same as you are going to connect your branch office. We're just using our network tunnel groups, connecting our private data center by using an FD1 device or by using a firewall, connecting over a network tunnel group towards Cisco Secure Access. If bandwidth becomes a very important marker, at that moment we can also include ECMP. A next step within the network tunnel groups is also routing. And as I've told you already in the beginning, at this moment, BGP can become key in this one, because routing itself is at that moment controlled by BGP itself. If you want to move over to static routing instead of using BGP, at that moment, we are going to include also some different routes. It's something that you need to change on your data center itself. You need to change also your routing in your data center, because we need to tell the data center, okay, when traffic is seen from Cisco Secure Access, they can be seen from the CCG net ranges 100.64/10. Do not forget, traffic can always also be seen from our VPN pool. So during configuration of the VPNs, we need to define the client IP addresses of our VPN pool itself. So layer 3 wise, we need to tell our local data center that these IP addresses are known from the VPN. If you do not like VPN, if you do not like to change anything inside your data center itself, we have an easy way to manage this application traffic by using a resource connector. A resource connector is in fact a simple tool or a simple service that we install inside your data center. It's based on a VMware image. It's based on an AWS AMI version that you have to install. You have to configure first in your dashboard. You need to provision a key. You need to copy this key inside your image. And then when the key has been configured, while launching, automatically the client, the resource connector, is going to identify himself inside your secure access tenant. When your tenant is connected to your data center, you can start then using your resource connector connecting to one specific application. So you can configure your private application linked to this resource connector. If you want to use many resource connectors because you have a bandwidth, you have some bandwidth requirements, at that moment we are going to make use of a resource connector group, and this resource connector group is also connecting into a resource connector gateway inside Cisco Secure Access. Load balancing is done automatically, failover management is done automatically. So you as an admin do not have to take care about anything related to failure detection or related to management of your environment itself. Scaling can become a very important topic when you want to manage your private applications. So here you have some remarks or some options on scaling itself. So as you can see, one resource connector, one resource DTLS tunnel can manage up to 500 megabits of traffic for that specific application. So how you're going to manage all your traffic can depend on what kind of information you want to send, or on how many applications you want to send through this resource connector. So if you want, you can combine many resource connectors so that you can grow up to 4 gig at the max at the moment. So what are the benefits? It's a virtual application that you're going to install inside your data center itself. It's a DTLS tunnel which is built automatically from your data center to Cisco Secure Access. By default, all ports and protocols are supported within this resource connector. And last but not least, you do not have to change anything inside your data center itself. The resource connector, if you see it over here, the resource connector is using an IP address within your data center itself. What's another advantage within the resource connector is that we do support overlapping networks and that we can easily scale the environment itself. So at the end, with Cisco Secure Access, when you want to look for the secure private access solution within Cisco Secure Access, you have your ZTNA client, which is connecting per application using a quick tunnel, using masquee to a specific proxy inside Cisco Secure Access. You have your different firewall policies. Within Cisco Secure Access, you have your app connector, which is connecting your private applications towards Cisco Secure Access. Your private applications are configured within CSA, and when these private applications are linked to the correct resource connector within Cisco Secure Access, we have that at that moment routing is taken care of, and you as an admin do not have to take care of any routing changes inside Cisco Secure Access or inside your private data center. That's different when you want to go for an IPsec tunnel. At that moment, configuration-wise, it's similar, but instead of using an application connector, you're going to use an IPsec tunnel. But inside your data center, you have to take care of routing. All traffic from Cisco Secure Access, originated from Cisco Secure Access, has to be routed back from your data center towards Cisco Secure Access itself. So with Quick, we can go fast. We are using UDP-based access. It's very easy for the customer because he doesn't know if he's using a ZTNA client or not. And then with the app connector, we are optimizing the traffic over L4 to L7 from Cisco Secure Access towards your private applications itself. If you want to start deploying the ZTNA client, which is using your private app, within 4 hours you have everything up and running when everything is going smoothly. So, same like I've said in the beginning, it is easy for the users, it's easy for the admins, and we can connect from anywhere in the world. by using our ZTNA client or by using our VPN component. A last part, which is very important towards the storytelling, is the Cisco and Cisco story. We know that we have also the 1000 eyes integration. We know that we also have different other integrations inside Cisco Secure Access. So therefore, with the 1000 eyes integrations, we are going to showcase the performance and the health of the applications and also of our user itself. So how many times as an admin you are going to get a question on, hey, my application performance is poor and today I'm working from home. So with the 1000 eyes integration itself, we have the possibility to monitor the performance of the user's device. We have the possibility to monitor on how the user is connecting towards Cisco Secure Access itself. So by the end itself, we know that there is maybe a problem on the endpoint or on how the endpoint is connecting towards Cisco Secure Access. So you as an admin at that moment can already decide, okay, my roaming user has a problem with his local internet connectivity. So we have to tell the local user, because we have also the top 20 applications that we are listening, at that moment we also know that that user has problems over different networks. So at the end, when you are a global company, you can have an image like this one, where you can see where all your users are connected from and on how they are connected and where we see some problems. Maybe with 1000 eyes integrations itself, you can go a little bit, you can have a deep dive into your problems itself, where my application problems are stored, and with some more specific licensing on the 1000 eyes integration itself, at that moment you can also look inside the routing between your internet provider and your SaaS provider or your application provider. That's it for the moment. I'm just on time, I think. So later on, we have a Q&A session on Cisco Secure Access itself. If you have any more deep dive technical question, let me know through the chat or later on to the live Q&A session. Thank you for your attendance, and now we are moving over to Hendrik and to a more live session.
Thank you, Chair, for a very interesting presentation regarding Cisco Secure Access, and I'm very pleased that you deep dive a little bit on the visibility as well, because we know that is a focal point for many customers, the visibility part. Right. Our next speaker is our own Alexander, Conscia's own Alexander, and he has been praying to the demo gods all morning because of he's going to present a demo. So that's welcome, Alexander. Let's take it away.
Thank you very much. And yes, we're going to pray to the demo gods. We only have one little video, but the rest we are taking on the fly. So that's going to be very interesting to see. So we're just jumping through some of these slides just to hit mine. All right. So we have an actual demonstration of Cisco Secure Access, right? So now we've gone through what is the actual solution, but now we want to get into the nitty-gritty stuff and actually see how it works and not just PowerPoints. But before we get to that, I just want to clarify how our solution is set up with our demo environment. So of course, like Terry mentioned, we have all these identities, and we need to have those identities imported from somewhere. So the user provisioning is also called the SCIM, so that's a system for cross-domain identity management, long name. But we have multiple ways to actually import our users and groups. And keep in mind, this is only users and groups. This has nothing to do with passwords or anything like that. We're basically just importing users and the group mappings. And we can use the AD connector, so if we have AD on-prem, we can use a connector on-prem for that. Or we can utilize Azure, where we use the intra-ID stuff. So in our case, we will be utilizing the Azure enterprise application. So it's pretty straightforward. Within the enterprise applications inside Azure, you will be able to actually find it in Marketplace and just follow the steps, and then the provisioning just works. besides having the Azure SCIM provisioning, we also need to have SAML application, so we can use that SSO. So we use that for many of the functions. Also, when you do the enrollment for ZTA, we need to be able to actually see who the users are. In this case, we also have a directory sync into Duo MFA, so Cisco Duo for the MFA solution, because that's what we use in our lab. And then, of course, from Duo, we also have yet another application into Secure Access. It might seem a bit much in this scenario, but it's actually pretty simple, and it's done at least within 30 minutes, and then everything is set up in this regard. And just keep in mind, this could also be a custom IDP, Okta, or many other IDP providers. So it's not limited to only Secure Access. And we can also, if you were doing a POV or simple test scenarios, we can also do manual imports through CSV files. So in our scenario, we just have two users, the IT user and the employee user. And the main benefits between the two is that we have two different groups they are assigned to. So we have a lab IT group, and then we have a lab employees group, where the employee will be a part of the employees, and the IT will be a part of the IT one. This might be a bit much of seeing, but just know that on the far left side, we will be testing the ZTA module, so that's a manage endpoint. And then we also have a third party, where that could be a third party, a consultant, anything else that has an unmanaged endpoint that we are not in control of. And then on the far right, we have the two different possibilities for the backhaul connectivity, like Terry talked about. So in the top right, we have a firewall where we have a VGI BGP session. So that's just a traditional IPsec tunnel, where we'll be reaching one of our Nginx IT web services, and our DNS is also behind this one. But underneath, we also have the resource connector. That's the VM that we deploy on-prem closest to our resources, and then we use the outbound DTLS connection, and that's where we'll be hitting our FMC and our ICE instance, and also the remote connectivity or the remote desktop I'll be using. So this gives an overview that we can use both the IPsec backhaul and the resource connector, and you, as an endpoint user or an end user, you will never see the difference whenever I'm using IPsec or if I'm using a resource connector. That is all on the fly. So my next one I have here is just a short video showing how it's used on iOS devices. In my scenario, it will be an iPhone. It could also be iPad, any iOS stuff. And just keep in mind, this will also function on Samsung Knox devices. But in our scenario, we only have an iOS device. What you will be seeing is that we utilize the relay functionality within iOS 17. That without having any connect client or anything like that, just pure native integration in iOS, I will be able to do on-demand tunnels to my resources whenever I need them. I don't have a constant always on VPN running in order to reach my resources. So the video might be a bit fast, but what we see here is that we have VPN in place and my zero trust, and this is my domains that we'll be using or can reach. And then I'm trying to reach an Nginx IT, and then I'm trying to reach my FMC. Again, keep in mind, this is all my private applications. We're also trying to do a remote desktop, and this is not exposed to the internet. This is through resource connector. And I have a seamless experience for my remote desktop as well. And again, this could of course be an iPad if you have remote users needing to RDP into anything. So this is very powerful. And of course, like I said before, this will also work on Samsung Knox. So that was the iOS part, but we also want to get into what we will see from a normal end user perspective if we're running a Windows client or anything like that. And by that, we will dig into an actual demonstration. And again, pray to the gods of Deimos that this will just work right away. So what we see here is basically the overview of the dashboard of Cisco Secure Access. We will see many different things like you're used to in whatever dashboard you use. We get a lot of data in regards to how much data has been sent through the different applications, our DNS stuff as well, security activities, if you have any IPS signatures, how many connectivities do we have in VPN, ZTA, you name it. All these, we have a very good dashboard showing what is actually being able to show or whatever data we have from the actual portal. So I'm not going to go too deep into the actual the actual Secure Access admin portal, but I just want to let you know that before I go into actual demonstrations that we have some access control policies in here where I already put up some rules. And in this case, you might see on my line 3 and 4, I have used some of the groups that you have already seen before in my previous table. So in this case, we have a Conscia group lab can reach my private resource, ICE, and the same we have underneath to reach a certain private resource groups. So inside my IT group, I have even more applications that are able to be reached. The main thing to note about access policies is that it's one unified dashboard. So as you see, I have different kind of access. I have private access, and I also have internet access. But they are all in one single unified dashboard and access control policy. And of course, through filters, I can only show with certain names, or if I only want to search for private resources because I don't want to look into internet resources right now, I can always do that as well. So this gives us a very easy one single GUI to do enforcement and keep them alive. So with that being said, I will just go over to a jump station I have here. And as you see, you have the secure client. So back AnyConnect client, but with the version 5. And at the top, we of course have the AnyConnect VPN. I think that needs no introduction. So that is the normal one that we are used to use, and that just works. Underneath, you will see a new one. That is the Zero Trust Access, the ZTA module, which Terry talked about. And in this case, I'm already enrolled into the ZTA for my portal. So that means I'm ready to actually be utilizing Zero Trust Access. Again, Zero Trust Access is active. And then underneath, I have the Umbrella module, which also talks into the internet access part. So that's exactly like you know from Umbrella or Umbrella SIG. But what's worth to mention in this one is that this machine has no access to any of the resources I'm trying to access. So they are not locally connected to anything. They are far away from each other. And the only way I'm going to reach these resources is through Zero Trust Access. And because I predefined some access rules and I predefined some Zero Trust Access within the admin portal. So the first thing we're going to try is that we're going to reach my FMC that is only internally reachable. It's not put out on the internet. I did not NAT it. I did not do anything in that regard. This one, it's reachable through my resource connector. But again, you will not see if it's the resource connector or if it's an IPsec backhaul. But what you will see is that my URL ends with rifthub.lab, meaning that this is only internal DNS resolved. And this just works right out the way. I can access it with no issues. And then we also have another one, like we saw, the FMC is reachable through the resource connector. Then we also have a simple Nginx website, where you will see this only have access for the IT department, so the IT group. And this is actually being reached through the backhaul IPsec. But as you see, the customer or the end user will never see the actual difference between a resource connector or an IPsec backhaul. So you might also have some applications where you want to elevate the privileges. So let's say in this next scenario, we have an ICE installation, and my ICE is very urgent to my security, and I want to be sure that not everybody enrolled ZTA and then I messed up some rules will be able to access it. So what we do when we access the ICE server, I request that the end user will do an MFA prompt or completely log in with the SSO credentials again and then authenticate through the IDP. So when I connect to this one, there will be some steps. Those will be improved in a newer version. There will just be a prompt coming up. But then I'm prompted that I will not have the access to the website before I'm actually logged in. And now my edge is out of date, and that's all fine. What happens here is I get a push notification. And you just have to trust me that I got a push notification on my mobile phone here, and I will accept that. Once it's successful, it will redirect me into the ICE instance behind the scenes. And what happens here? I got access to my identity services engine. I can always change the interval. So right now, every time I access the ICE instance, I will have to do MFA. Let's say that you want to have a timer so that every 30 minutes, I need to reprompt my MFA for some reason. I can also do that. But in this scenario, it's every single time I will access the ICE application, I will have to do the MFA. but we can set a timer for seconds, minutes, or even days if that's the case you want. Okay, so keep in mind all this is done through the ZTA. What we also can do, because now we just showed web applications, that's all fine, right? But what ZTA can do is that we can support most TCP, UDP, IP protocols. So in this case, I'm going to open up an RDP session. So that's TCP 3389 or UDP 3389, right? Using my ZTA module. So when I access this one, it's through my ZTA module. And the end user doesn't know it. Again, I'm not connected to any VPNs whatsoever, right? This is another RDP session just opened. And a seamless experience. I do not feel any latency at all. It would not be different whenever I was on-premise with that server in the same segment or if I'm remote. All right, so that's all good. But what about if I have third parties, consultants, anything coming in that would only need to reach like my, let's say my FMC or my Nginx proxy or my Nginx web server? How will we go around do that? So what we do is that when we define our private resources, which we do inside here, I'm not going to go too much in detail with this, but we actually predefine our resources and how are they allowed to be reached. So in this case, I actually have my Nginx right here. And as you see, I have different FQDNs. I can access them through zero trust connections, client-based, but also browser-based. And this is what we're going to look at, the browser-based one. So I can put in a URL that I want to be using. In this scenario, you also see appended a large tenant ID and then some domains from cisco.io. Keep in mind, forward, this will be possible to do with your own CNAME. So you will have your own domain appended into this one. So you don't have to use your org ID zta.sse.cisco.io because that is not convenient for you, right? But there will be coming a CNAME functionality in this regard as well. So if we access this URL, and now I'm already logged in with my credentials, most likely. So you have to trust me on this one. Here I'm already logged in as the AVA underscore IT user, which is allowed to access this resource. And yet again, I'm getting an MFA prompt. I have to allow it. Keep in mind, at this stage, I do not have any access to the actual application. I'm still behind kind of my gateway. It's first, by now, I have actual access to my application. That also enforces the zero trust model. So whenever I access my IDP or you saw my MFA part, I had no access to the actual private resource, meaning the attack surface is lessened. In other means that if you were doing the NAT translation, you would have access right away. You would have no gateway having to verify your login credentials at first. So this is also another stepping stone into how to make this even more secure, right? If I were, let's say, logging into another browser using exactly the same group, but in this case, I will be logging in with another user instead. So in this case, let's say I'm using in this case, I will just be using my employee group instead. So using my employee user instead, and of course this one will not have access into it because my employees group does not have access into this actual tenant. And of course the demo gods was not with us in this time, so that will not be possible. But what will happen when I log in with the wrong user in this regard, I will be prompted from the normal, umbrella splash page saying that I was not granted access into this application. So that way the user also knows when they're not granted access. And of course, in that also means that when they not rejected access, they will never even be able to touch the actual application. That is a fast and easy way to use zero trust in combination with Cisco Secure Access. And we have, again, the possibility to do resource groups like I showed before. And even in the end, we can also see which rules we will be hitting. And of course, there's also activity search where I will be able to see actual activity going on whenever things are allowed or denied, just like from Umbrella, or if you're using a firewall nowadays, secure firewall. You will also be able to see the events and connection events happening. Yeah, and then just to briefly mention it, Terry was also going into it. We have the digital experience insights. So that is the ThousandEyes integration. In this case, we only have one machine, and this is actually the same machine as you saw me using just before. It was registered as ThousandEyes. It's very simple. One simple line has to be put in, registered with my tenant, and then I get experience insights, just like Terry showed on slides. So basically here I have my endpoint that we just saw before, how much memory is used, CPU usage, and how is my connection. In this case, I'm wired connected, so that means I will not be able to see my Wi-Fi or our SSI connectivity. But if you were wireless connected, you would also get how is the connectivity to my local wireless network. And then in this one, we get from the endpoint through the local network and then on to the destination, which is secure access. How am I performing? If I were to have collaboration apps or anything like that, I will also get data on how that works. For the last thing, if we just step one more look into the ThousandEyes within this agent, we can actually go back and see when we had a ticket, like let's say 1 day ago, we had a ticket saying that we had bad connectivity for VPN or something was not acting as we were decided to. Either the CPU was fully loaded or we had problems with the gateway latency or we had gateway loss to our next hub. We would actually be able to fast utilize the ThousandEyes agent and see what is happening. Like we see here, I had a spike in my CPU because I was installing WebEx. And then it flatlined again, which is all good. But that way we can say, oh, there might have been a reason for you having a bad experience back then. Or if I had any gateway loss that was beyond, beyond my 0%, we will also see it in this. And then could say, okay, that might be the reason why we had this bad connectivity. Or again, we have some scheduled tasks for our secure access VPN concentrators as well. This is just a brief introduction on how this works. Of course, there's much more to be going on inside the actual administration portal, but I hope this gives you a very good insight in how it works and how we can utilize Cisco Secure Access and actually have a more seamless experience while we still put a higher security on our users by utilizing zero trust. I truly believe that this is a thing that many organizations will appreciate, and that we will see that both administration side will be less prone to error and will also be much more easy to handle. And at the same time, the user experience will be much better because you don't have to think about logging into a VPN connector or anything like that. Thank you very much for your time. And then I think it's time for the Q&A. I hope that you had some questions. Otherwise, feel free to use the Q&A section inside our WebEx. And then we will try to answer them as best as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexander, for this demo. I think that the demo was reasonable with us. It could have been better, but I think there was almost a home run there. Please join us, Terry. We are going to have a Q&A session now. We have some questions in the chat, and I will have to read them because they are fairly long. The first one is, Cisco Secure Access has several integrations already included in the product today. Microsoft, Conditional Access, Sentinel, and SIEM, and so on and so forth. More integrations will be there. Oh, sorry, that was one question. How does CAS fit into the Microsoft ecosystem? That was the actual question.
That can be a nasty one or an easy one at the same time. Because by default, when you see the authentication part, we are going to use Azure AD or Azure Entra AD as an authentication source for single sign-on. We also can make use of Microsoft MFA. Later on in the future, you will see big movements towards support for Microsoft, where we are going to start integrating Intune, where we are going to start integrating or sending traffic event logs to Sentinel. So you'll see more and more Microsoft popping up. Also, which is not focused today, but the DLP part at that moment, which is also very strong in Microsoft nowadays. That's something that we are going to focus on, how to integrate also. So nowadays we have some studies going on how we are going to integrate that part. So that's a little bit more roadmap. One remark on everything that I say on roadmap, it's not qualified, it's not committed, so it's just wording.
Subject to change.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Okay, next one. I think that will be for you, Alexander. Does the branch and data center equipment needs to be Cisco?
No. And that's one of the very cool thing about this. Of course, it will benefit you if you use SD-WAN, because then we can just easily put them into, actually from the SD-WAN controller itself, we can actually provision them right into Secure Access. But as we are just utilizing a traditional...
Talking about single vendor, yeah.
Exactly, and of course it makes much more sense if you have a complete Cisco, because you have all the ecosystem from Cisco, but it doesn't have to be that. So while you're migrating onto a Cisco platform, we can still utilize Cisco Secure Access through a traditional IPsec. So we will just be spinning up an IKE Vision 2, and most likely with BGP peering, and then through Cisco Secure Access. So it doesn't have to be Cisco.
Okay.
And just to add on top of that one, a lot of integrations like the FortiGate, like Checkpoint firewalls, like Palo Alto firewalls are already documented. So we already have documented integrations towards Cisco Secure Access.
And the documentation is very, very good in that regard. You can basically just follow it, because everybody knows that you have to do Diffie-Hellman groups, proposals, and all that kind of stuff, and you always get it messed up. But actually, the documentation says exactly which is accepted and which is not. So I think that's very good documentation.
That's a good point. It's valid, and it's key when you have, if you have already have a SD-WAN solution, that you will support integration, right?
Exactly.
I think this one would be targeted to you, Thierry. How will Cisco Secure Access integrate with Cisco ISE? That's a technical one.
Cisco ISE is nowadays more and more important for a lot of companies, because they have Cisco ISE already integrated, and they are using Cisco ISE as a master for their authentication. So all authentication, all authorization work is done within Cisco ISE. So as of today, we have the possibility to change our authentication flow. Instead of using SAML, we can start using Radius, sending our Radius request to Cisco ISE, so that we have that one single truth of single source of truth that we are going to use for the authentication part. We can also send posturing information. We can retrieve posturing information from the client. Change of authority is already supported. And later on, we are going to include SGT support from Cisco ISE into our firewall service. And the posturing service, which is included in Cisco ISE, will be then also leveraged inside Cisco Secure Access. So at that moment, the Cisco and Cisco story, leveraging Cisco ISE information, will be more important towards the future itself.
And I think that's along those lines. That's a key point regarding the ZTNA or universal ZTNA. We talked about that you will have a end-to-end ZTNA from spanning from the network to the cloud security as well. So that's a good point. Right, then I have an additional question here from, I think that will be for you, Alexander, because will ZTNA replace, because you were talking about this in your demo, will ZTNA replace traditional VPN completely?
No, I don't truly believe that it will be. We have to go for the face. Like we also saw Peter Paul, he was mentioning how we were doing the kind of stepping stones into a zero trust architecture. So let's be honest, the ZTA will only be client to server traffic, because the ZTA client does not have a specific IP address itself. And let's face it, we still have some, maybe still some modern, but most likely legacy applications, which is the server to client communication. Those ZTA will not be able to support out of the box. But with the ZTA, we can start moving many of those applications which are client to server, so basic web functionalities, RDP, stuff like that. We can move them to use the ZTA client instead. And then that way we kind of traverse into using a more ZTA way, but there will always be scenarios where we still have to rely on the traditional VPN. So it will not be dying, the traditional VPN, not within this year at least. I cannot tell you in 5 or 10 years later on, right? But there will still be a need for traditional VPN. And it's also a very, in secure access, it's a natural way to actually move into VPN as a service. It's a lift and shift kind of thingy. where we just spin up new VPN concentrators in Secure Access. We can do it right on demand in different regions, and then we kind of lift your on-prem VPNs into Secure Access. That would be the first stepping stone, because that's a kind of easy way to go from your on-prem VPNs to VPN as a service. And then we can slowly start to migrate our applications, zero trust, and using the ZTA module in that regard. So it's a journey, but
I was going to say that, because
yep.
It's a journey that we discussed earlier, that there will be no easy ride from A to B. It will be a journey, right? So right, perfect. I think it's a little bit along the final question I have here is a little bit along those lines that we discussed a little bit earlier, Thierry. But does MFA require to be Cisco Duo, or could it be any other MFA vendor? Or
so it can be any MFA vendor. So if you are using already Microsoft MFA or Azure MFA, or if you are using already other MFA vendors, then there is no problem. You will see more and more Duo MFA popping up inside the different demos, inside the different construction environments and so on. So, but today it's not required, and it will never be required to have Duo MFA. You'll only see some advantages in the future when you have Duo MFA included inside our environment itself.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, you don't need to have the MFA, but we are 2024, right? It doesn't make sense to not have MFA. If you don't have MFA now, I think that's your first priority. Get MFA, right? And then move on from there.
Strongly stated, MFA is required.
Okay.
MFA is required. Yeah. That will make sense. If you look at at least in the Gartner definition, MFA is required.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. That brings me to the because I don't think we have any more questions. I think some of the questions have been answered in the chat. So I will just go to the closing remarks, and we're a little bit ahead of time, but not too much. So I think it's fair enough to do the closing remarks. One, at least from my point of view, what I've been learning today, because it's been very interesting. Thank you for your presentations, and thank you for your demos. Paul, and Peter Paul is outside. Thank you for him as well. It has been very interesting, but I think that the closing remark would be something like this: that don't listen only to Gartner. Don't listen only to the vendors. Do your own research, do your own assessment, and do a POC and do a POV, and that will give you an overview of the best way into this technology, which is, I think it's fair to say, it's pretty new still. So let's do your own research and take it from there. So that will be this. I think this will be the closing remark. Thank you everybody for listening in. We were very excited that there are so many listening to this presentation. I think that some of it was because of the news, and it's still new technology. At least SSE is new technology. So thank you for listening in, and I hope you have enjoyed the presentations as much as we have been enjoying to give them. And there will be the presentation will be sent out afterwards. Our marketing department will make sure of that. So thank you for that, and thank you for now, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.